Have you ever wondered what the US Navy used to do before SEAL Team 6? Before special warfare? Well, quit wondering, because guess what? I'm going to tell you all about it. The cold rain drizzled down the tin roof of the Union picket boat that unusually cold evening on the Roanoke River, turning the water into a shifting sheet of black ink. Near midnight, on October 27th of 1864, Lieutenant William B. Cushing and the crew stood on the bow of a 30-foot picket boat known as torpedoes, due to their ironclad ramming rod on its front bow. His oilskin cap was slick with the rain as it began to turn to ice, eyes fixed on the faint glow of the town of Plymouth, just 8 miles ahead. You see, the Confederate Army was on the retreat, and the end of the war was now within earshot. But the South's last true bulwark, a defense that even held a chance of winning, was its Navy. Behind him, 13 volunteers crouched low, their breaths ghosting in the frigid air of the dark night sky. Among them was Seaman Daniel George, an experienced sailor and a man just risky enough to attempt a suicide mission like this one tonight. Serving under the borrowed name of William Smith, this seasoned sailor's life had already swung between surviving 2 shipwrecks, 21 battlefields, and a previous prisoner of war camp stint. "Keep her steady," Cushing whispered. The boat's small steam engine pulsed like a beating heart. On its bow jutted a 20-foot spar, the deadly torpedo glimmering faintly beneath the rain. George wiped the water from his eyes and peered into the darkness. He could still scarcely believe that he'd even volunteered for this. A suicide mission, the men said. But George had escaped death too many times before to be even afraid of it now. The mission, you see, was the CSS Albemarle, a floating fortress clad entirely in a thick layer of iron and cannons that ruled these waters for nearly a year. Her iron hide shrugging off every cannonball the Union fleet had thrown against her as it claimed the lives of several ships the Union had used against her previously. It slipped along the riverbank, past the black silhouettes of the cypress trees. Rebel picket boats were posted all along the Roanoke, but the storm had masked the hiss of their steam engine. A mile below Plymouth loomed the wreck of the USS Southfield. The ship, the Albemarle herself, had rammed and sunk earlier that spring. Confederate guards watched from the deck, lanterns glinting with muskets. Silence, Cushing mouthed. Every man froze. The boat had drifted past, so near to the Albemarle that George could hear a guard cough. Ugh! No alarm. They had made it through. Further upstream sat the Plymouth. Moored to the town wharf, the CSS Albemarle loomed, a black angular monster wrapped in a pen of floating logs, 30 feet from her hull. Inside her iron shell, Lieutenant A.F. Worley, Confederate States Navy, paced the deck frantically. That night, you see, he had doubled the watch. The night was too dark, too wet, too still, and he feared something bad would happen. Ahoy! Came the challenge. An indistinct voice floated back, unintelligible over the wind. Unsatisfactory, Worley barked. Sound the alarm! Open fire! A bell clanged. Rifles cracked. On the river, Cushing's men heard the rattle of alarm. They see us! George hissed. Then let's give 'em something to see, Cushing answered, voice calm as ever. Full steam ahead! The small steam engine screamed. The big boat surged forward, its bow throwing spray. Rebel bullets ripped the air like hissing bees. Splinters flew as musket balls chewed through the thin hull. Canister! Cushing ordered. From the small forward gun came a thunderous blast. Grape shot tearing into the wharf and scattering Confederate gunners about. Through the rain and muzzled flashes, the Albemarle materialized, a hulking fortress of iron, her casemate rising above the logs like a cliff face. George gripped the torpedo lanyard. Closer! He shouted over the din. The boat slammed against the log barrier. The men rocked violently as Cushing shouted. Hold fast! Steam roared, propeller churning, but slowly, impossibly. The launch clawed its way over the slippery logs, and the spar dipped beneath the Albemarle's overhang. Inside the ironclad, Worley tried to bring his heavy bird gun to bear. Fire the aftergun, he cried. The big cannon roared, but the muzzle just couldn't depress low enough. And the shot screamed just over the attackers' heads and exploded on the far shore. Now, George! Now! Cushing yelled. George jammed the torpedo under the ironclad's side. Then he yanked the lanyard, igniting the bomb. A blinding flash, and then the world convulsed. The river erupted in fire and water. A column of spray and flame shot skyward, swallowing the pickaboat whole. George felt himself lifted, weightless even, as the blast hurled him and his crewmates 30 feet through the air into the frozen water. When he struck the water, it was like hitting stone. The cold drove the breath from his lungs. Under the Albemarle's decks, the explosion ripped open her port bow. A gaping wound yawned beneath the waterline. The river poured in faster. The men could even stop it. Worley shouted for the pumps, for the donkey engine, for anything. But the water level rose too swiftly. And within minutes, the great ironclad that once ruled the waters lurched and settled, leaving only her casemate and her smokestack above the surface. Abandoned ship! People were crying. Above, the Union pickaboat was gone, shattered and sinking. The men thrashed in the water, while Confederate rifles spat bullets from the wharf. "Surrender!" a rebel voice shouted. "Never!" Cushing barked back, "and every man for himself." George kicked hard, boots dragging him down. The weight of his peacoat and the cartridges, they pulled at him like anchors. He shrugged free of the coat, clutching for air, for light, for anything, while bullets plinked the water around him. "Cushing!" he shouted, but the river swallowed his voice. Somewhere in the chaos, you see, Cushing had swam towards the swampy bank, dodging fire, refusing capture, and George's arms burned, his side bleeding from shrapnel. He aimed for the shore, stroke slowing. Vision, it was narrowing. At last, his feet touched the mud, and click, a rifle cocked above his head. The Confederate soldiers captured him. Exhausted and half frozen, he lifted his hands and joked, "Alright, boys, you've got me again." This was now the third time Daniel D.G. George had been captured by the enemy. They hauled him from the water. Behind him, through the mist, the Albemarle listed drunkenly, her iron hide vanishing beneath the river's surface. At sunrise, Lieutenant Worley surveyed the wreck from the fort. Only the ship's armored roof and a wisp of smoke marked where the Confederacy's pride and joy had stood. "The pickets gave no warning," he muttered. The shore guns were silent. He knew a court of inquiry would follow, but it would not raise his ship from the mud. Downstream, half buried in swamp grass and dirt, Cushing crawled from the water, shivering but alive. He listened as two Confederate officers passed along the path. "She's gone," one said. "The Albemarle is at the bottom." Cushing smiled through his lips. "Then it was worth it," he whispered to himself.